Hi, folks. Charles Carrion again, speaking to you about John Barron. The topic continues to fascinate me, as I hope it continues to fascinate the rest of the world, obviously. Jumping right in here, if for some reason you haven't heard it before, President Trump called into a TV show, I believe it was, and claimed to be John Barron, a person whose name he has invented and used before back in his real estate mogul days, so we're familiar with it, and then proceeded to give his usual set speech of hate, bile, and deception, uh, which it's like his signature. Immediately recognizable, as unrecognizable as his signature. And of course, the fact that he does this con man trick is it's kind of hard for people to wrap their hands around it. And so I thought I'd talk about my experience with dealing with the first con man that I ever met in my legal career, or actually had to litigate against, which was Stephen Michael Cohen, who was the man who stole sex.com from Gary Kremen. And I started working on the case back in 1999 when domain names weren't even known to be property. It struck me that if there was a domain name that was property, it would have to be sex.com because it was certainly the most valuable domain in the world at that time. So Steve Cohen was smart enough to steal it right after he got out of prison for doing what? Impersonating lawyers. And yeah, literally, I took a deposition of his wife, and she testified that she thought he was a lawyer. He had a whole closet full of suits and go to court all the time, and indeed he did. And he was, I believe, convicted of bankruptcy fraud, and as part of that, impersonating a lawyer. And he was a pretty tough guy to deal with. It was really hard to prevail in court because, first of all, there's a tendency to believe that people who wear suits and use paperwork aren't intentionally lying, even when they do engage in shady business practices, thought to be maybe kind of like exceeding the commercial speed limit, but really not like they went out there to cheat people. So it's actually kind of difficult to get over that hump. You really need solid evidence. And often it is said that frauds have to be proven with clear and convincing evidence, which is a higher standard than sounds likely to me. It's like clear and convincing, somewhere more proof than probability, than likelihood, which is what we call preponderance of the evidence, which is what will allow you to win a civil suit, say for negligence, personal injury. But fraud, a lot of the time, does have to be proved higher level of proof. Well, in this case, we had all the proof we really needed. We had a forged document that was not written by Gary Kremen that purported to give sex.com to Steve Cohen. But Steve had a good answer to it, and it was that actually Kremen was the thief. Cohen was the creative guy who picked up the domain name and put it to use. And now Kremen, having discovered that what he gave away was actually worth millions and millions of dollars, he wanted it back. So he was going to steal it back from Cohen through litigation. That was literally his defense. And it's the sort of thing when you're a plaintiff's lawyer on the other side, it kind of knocks you on your ass. You expect, what? My client's honesty is being questioned here? It's weird. How could that be? I'm the plaintiff here. And you really have to gear up to it. And the way we geared up to it was by getting all the evidence of his past criminal conduct and digging into it and undermining his credibility. And Cohen actually eventually collapsed under pressure, made a bad move, stole a bunch of subpoenaed documents from Kinko's down in Chula Vista while they were being copied, and misrepresented himself. And now I'm finally getting around to the topic of misrepresenting herself. He walked into the Kinko's and misrepresented himself as one of the other lawyers on Kremen's team, a guy named Rich Diestel from San Francisco. He said, I'm Rich Diestel. I paid for the documents using my credit card. That was true. Diestel had paid for the documents, so Cohen didn't have to pay for the $600 for the big copying cost. And he walks out, and the video ultimately that we collect, we get the Chula Vista police to seize. They put it all together, and you see it's him pretending to be Rich Diestel, picks up the documents, walks out the door, then comes back in the door, grabs an envelope, which he will later use to send the sanitized document stack that he's already gone through to Rich Diestel. Why? So Rich can't claim that it was a theft. But the $600 was stolen, and now that I think of it, that was my credit card. And so I called up the police, and I said it's a crime. It was investigated. Ultimately, when Judge James A. Ware saw that video, that was really the end of Steve Cohen's case. As soon as he saw it, basically, he transferred the sex.com domain name to Gary Kremen, and Gary Kremen immediately became a wealthy pornographer. But this thing of deception, of pretending to be other people, this thing was, Steve Cohen would pretend to be anybody that it was useful to pretend to be. And it happened to be Rich Diestel on that day, but he would pretend to be a lawyer, which he wasn't. And he also would do press releases under the names of people that either didn't exist or he was not. And sometimes he would do really wild press releases like that would drive the financial markets, that would drive traffic to sex.com by all these curious eyeballs. What is sex.com? He would use PR Newswire news releases to publish lies. And ultimately, I came down with a method for dealing with Steve, and it was called take him at his word. So every time he told a lie, what we'd do is we would say, if that is true, then this, and this other thing must also be true, and we will go search for evidence of those things, even though you would think that's a really weird thing to do. Why would you go search for evidence to support the lies that the guy is telling? And the reason is because you're going to not find any. You're going to find no evidence to support their lies. But you don't get there unless you take them at their word. So don't get frustrated when you're dealing with a liar. Don't get frustrated with a con man who says you're doing what they're actually doing. Take a look at what they're actually doing, document it, and then ask, looking at other facts, whether what they're doing actually jives with what they claim to be doing. And it'll turn out to be that they're not. And so I've had a kind of a jump start on the entire Trump era in that I'm really familiar with how con men think. And the hardest part of dethroning a con man really is to overcome that basic skepticism that people have that this person is honest, or rather that they're dishonest. That the basic assumption that we just make a positive assumption about people because, you know what, mostly in life we have not been ripped off and betrayed. I have a saying, it says, nothing goes wrong until something goes right. And that simply means that nobody will bother to steal your shit until you have it. And then the second aphorism is, it's too late when the blood is in the water. And I think that kind of explains itself. Once you've started bleeding, once you've started losing, the sharks are going to get you. It's too late. So you really got to prevent yourself from being injured. And so what that means is when something's going right, you got to protect it. If you're finally getting rich, that stack is now in danger like it never was before because it didn't exist before. And you need to start thinking in terms of the old saying, if you wish for peace, prepare for war. Vic pacem para bellum, for as soon as you've got something good. And the United States of America, the presidency, well, for the possessor of it, it is a very good thing. And we can see what's happening. We didn't protect it. Congress didn't protect it. Politicians didn't protect it. No one really protected that presidency from being stolen. And like the Tao Te Ching says, a mass is stored of gold and jade and no one can protect it. Well, the store of gold and jade, like, that's trivial treasure compared with what President Trump commands. And I think this John Barron episode must not be forgotten. We have to keep talking about it. And I just wanted to illuminate this other side of it, that this business of being John Barron, part of Trump's long-standing method of deceiving us all. So, have a good day.